Hey, real quick, can you say and spell your name?
Yeah, Pat McFerron, P-A-T-M-C, capital F-E-R-R-O-N.
What's your title?
President, Cole Hargrave Snodgrass and Associates.
All right, cool. And you can just look right at him and just
All
talk
right.
to him.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, hold on.
Pat, talk a little bit about this particular precinct.
This precinct is obviously in kind of near northwest Oklahoma City, central area here. One of the things that makes it unique is that it's really an area that's undergoing changes. I mean, we're here near the Chesapeake campus. We're obviously new retail coming in, a new vibrancy. That's causing there to be younger people who move into the area, starting families. But there are also a lot of older homes that are still here and people that have lived here for generations. And so it's really a good mix, a kind of a microcosm, I think, of the entire Oklahoma City metro area.
Oklahoma is considered a strong red state, and all indications are it will go Republican in the general election, of course. But there are many shades of red in the Oklahoma electorate. Talk a little bit about that and the diversity among Oklahoma GOP voters.
No, the Republican Party has grown tremendously over the last 30, 40 years. Statewide, for example, in 1978, I've got polling data that shows only 24% of Oklahomans generally supported the Republicans at that time. Today it's over 55, 56%. And what's happened is, over time, different elements have come. In the 1980s, it was really the moral majority, the Christian right, that grew and became a part of the party. We've had libertarians and the Ron Paul movement of the last few years kind of grow the party. And there are at times they have different opinions and different views. Now we have kind of a Tea Party Republican, and then more of an establishment type of Republican. One's more focused on individual liberties, the other one's focused on what we can do to keep the economy going. And they have different views on a lot of different things, and it's pretty fascinating when you see the wide field of Republicans for the presidential there, that each of these can kind of hit one of those little niches within the underneath the Republican umbrella.
Are the Republicans in the area that we're talking about, are they generally much older than the Democrats in the same precinct or same area?
You know, I don't have that for just this precinct here, but I think there's a pretty good mix. As a general rule in Oklahoma, even Oklahoma City, the Democrats tend to be quite a bit older than Republicans, simply because they were in power so long. So senior citizens are, even though they tend to vote more Republican than some of the younger crowd, are registered, much more likely to be registered Democrats.
There was a Pew Research poll last week that showed few people get election news from local newspapers, that it's mostly TV. Does that mean Republican voters in Oklahoma City generally get their election news from Fox?
Well, we actually see that among Republican primary voters, 65% are watching Fox News on a daily basis. But I will tell you what we're seeing actually is in Oklahoma, we're at about 50% saying that local television is where they get their information. And then about 17% from the newspaper, and then 17% from online sources. But because so much of the online content is generated by newspapers, I think that the newspapers still play a very important role. And we've also found that the more often you vote, the more likely you are to read the newspaper on a regular basis.
Do older Republicans, more so than Democrats, make exceptions for Social Security and Medicare when they talk about disliking social programs?
Well, I think, yeah, I don't know about the disproportion there, but as the public as a whole, talking about Social Security, that's something that you're paying into yourself, so it's not considered kind of a government social program. It's something that you've paid for, and it's an entitlement that you deserve. So that one's most groups look at that much differently than they do a lot of other government programs, food stamps or other issues.
How much are the primary choices motivated by candidate performances in other states, momentum rather than the small differences on issues?
Well, I mean, the momentum really does matter. So, you know, it's fun. I do polling for a living. I like to do it. And it's always fun to kind of watch the horse race. But really, the most important issue to decide who's going to vote, where Oklahoma is going to be on March 1st, is what happens in South Carolina on February 20th. That's really going to decide things as much as possible. And it's going to be really interesting if the, quote, establishment candidates of Kasich and Bush and Rubio, I think Christie's probably out pretty quick, but you know, if they're not able to coalesce after South Carolina, it's going to make a real boon for the Trumps and Carsons.
Why do so many presidential candidates visit Oklahoma and try to win the state in 1988? The first primaries in the state compared to this year. Why was that such a bigger year than this year when it's similar competition?
Well, I mean, every election year is different. I will tell you one thing that I think probably, I don't know what the price of oil was in 1988, but there's no doubt that places with a strong economy and donors are going to get more presidential attention than others will. I also, in 1988, I think it was one of the first, an earlier kind of Super Tuesday types of issues, and Oklahoma is a cheaper media market. And so as you're trying to just rack up the number of states you're winning, Oklahoma does make some sense. I think after South Carolina's over, we might see a lot more activity here. And I will tell you, I think we've seen more activity this year than we have in a lot of recent years, presidential years. Trump's been here a couple of times, Cruz has been here, Fiorina's been here, I believe Rubio's been here. I mean, most people have made a trek to Oklahoma.
I think I read where one New Hampshire TV station netted $27 million in ad revenue over the primary season.
Well, that shows you how much the momentum matters.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why New Hampshire matters, because the momentum moving on.
Do those ads work the way they might have worked 20 years ago as far as moving the needle for a candidate, or is there some kind of point you get to where it's just people tune it out?
No, there are diminishing returns when you invest in any kind of advertising. You have to kind of meet a threshold to get the economies of scale to reach and have your message penetrate. But at some point, you do see diminishing returns on that. But it is difficult to reach people. Now, Republicans, I think, are a little bit easier because we already talked about the Fox News. Very few people DVR Fox News and then zap through it. Primetime advertising, other things are very difficult to do, but the live programming, news, sports, those kind of things still really do help.
What's it going to take for these Republican candidates? Which one do you think? What does it take to win this state if you're a Republican candidate?
Well, I mean, one, you have to have, despite the different shades of Republicans we have, they all are very conservative. They all are, almost decisively pro-life, very strong anti-growing government. They might differ on what kind of taxes to levy when they are, but they're generally anti-tax. They're anti-growth of the federal government in particular. They're very strong individual liberties, individual rights, states' rights. And so you're going to have someone that meets, and I don't think all the candidates, quite frankly, meet some litmus test there to be successful. But it's going to have to be someone that connects with the people, that they can be, hey, this is someone who's going to take, we have an intense dissatisfaction in Oklahoma with the federal government. So it's got to be someone that said, hey, I'm taking your values to Washington. I'm going to fix Washington. I think is really the message overall.
We're a couple of weeks away. You want to make a pick for the Oklahoma primary?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll say that I think the Oklahoma primary is going to be won by whoever wins South Carolina. I mean, it's the way the system's set up. I think that's who the favorite has to be as we move forward.